All right, guys, weekend recap from where I'm sitting. So, Austin Vanderford has a fight. Now, this is a longtime friend and a training partner. Paige Van Zant's husband, Austin. Austin's going to be a handful for anybody. There was 2 weight classes that he could choose from. He could be a king at 170. He could be a king at 85. It was one of these deals. So years ago, he comes up to 85. He gets his shot with Mousasi. Now, it wasn't the kind of performance or the outcome he wanted. How's he going to respond? It's a big question. And work ethic and desire are never a problem with this guy. So he comes in, he's got to fight over the weekend. He got caught and he got put down. So he gets up, he scrambles to his feet. Hey, he gets caught again and he gets put down. This time he doesn't respond. So he covers, the ref, opponent steps in. Ultimately, it's a TKO in 89 seconds. Now, I don't have any kind of excuse I'm here to offer you for Austin. I will just share with you there's something happened. There's something to this story. For Austin to go down and not to move is just unlike Austin. He's also been having problems. They call it a stinger when you get them in your neck. He's been having problems with his neck. He got hit in the way that his neck turned. Haven't reached out to him, but the comeback is still in progress. By no means is he stopping. Same card, Pat Downey debuts. Now, Pat Downey and Bo Nickel, if you're ever having a conversation, to combine those two would be very relevant. Pat Downey is now over in Bellator, Bo Nickel with the UFC. But what Bo is doing at the UFC is what Pat is doing over in Bellator. I don't know that Downey and Nickel ever met head-to-head. They're same weight class, doing the same thing with the same aspirations, but only for a short period of time, couple of years. I don't know that they ever met head-to-head. If they did, it wasn't the Pat Downey. What I mean by that, there was a while where Downey was a wrestler. Number 1 guy in the country, ended up 5th in the world championships. But by the time he would have crossed paths with Bo, which is a match that I can't even confirm for you happened. I want to say it happened. I want to say it happened at the US Open. It just wouldn't have been Pat. Pat was at that point no longer the wrestler. He was now the guy at wrestling tournaments trying to get into Abu Dhabi, who was already signed with Bellator and was doing his training at an MMA gym called Black Zillions, now Sanford MMA. It was just one of these things. So whatever those two's past, if there's not a way, right? This is just going to be a dream. Same age, same guys, same weight class, same background. It's going to be a dream to get them together, 2 different promotions. I'll just share with you, as Downey has emerged, you're going to see headlines, you're going to see stories that are very in line with what you've already seen on Bo Nickel. Now, I'm over on the PFL. And one of my all-time favorite fighters, one of everybody's all-time favorite fighters, Rory McDonald. Rory McDonald has had a surprising experience at the PFL. Anyone that's discussing or has followed Rory, that's a word that I'm surprised. I thought Rory would come in here. I thought he'd clean house. I thought he'd grab the $1 million. He'd be like Kayla Harrison and do it 3-4 times before finally find somebody that can beat him. And there was talks. I was even at a press conference one time. I was on one side of the podium and George St. Pierre was on the other. Dana's in the middle. And they were trying to make St. Pierre versus Rory. That's how good Rory McDonald is. They were trying to make this fight. It was a problem. Because St. Pierre, this was his training partner. It was his buddy. St. Pierre was older. He was the champion. He wouldn't call out this guy. But he also understood Rory McDonald might just be the next best thing. And I spoke to guys that were in those training rooms and in those sessions that said Rory can push him. Rory can push George unlike anyone else. Speaking to the skills that Rory McDonald once had, because he retired. He retired. You know, there gets to be a point, not only where you just can't do this anymore, there gets to be a point where you don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to run at 5 a.m. I don't want to follow a diet. I don't want to push through certain positions. I think that Rory's there. I think that he's there because he chose this. The PFL did not force it. He was a main event. You don't go from main event to retired unless you want to. So I think that our days of Rory and those great memories have, and the knockdown, drag-outs, the contest that he had with Lima, I think the number 1 fight that people remember about Rory McDonald was that battle that he had with Robbie Lawler. But now is the time where we thank him. We thank him for the memories, and we wish him very well. On the other side of the tracks is a UFC, and I've got to tell you, if you are a hardcore fan, I would go into that category. If you're a hardcore fan, 2022 has not been a great year for us. Like some of the bigger names and some of the bigger stars we're not seeing. But if you're a casual and you come across and you stop, you decide to give it a look, you've had a hell of a good time. Because the actual fights, the actual contests have been closer, have been more exciting, have been more dynamic, have had more skill with guys that have a cardio and an energy and a pace that they can push to keep that entertainment aspect up. No time I've ever seen. I mean, if there's ever been a time to get exposed to the sport or to become a fan, it's right now. This card, Dominic Cruz, Chito Vera, good card, great crowd, that's where it ends. I could not tell you this is one of the best or this is the most exciting or make sure you stop everything you're doing. It's what it turned into be. And there was a guy that went out there and fought Nate the Train. Now, not only did he have a great fight, he looks the part. I assume this was his debut. I could be completely wrong. I assume, though, it's his debut. And I want to tell you that to prove a point. That regardless if Nate has fought in 5 times or he fought 3 times, regardless if he's 1-1, it's the one time I saw him and I will not forget him. He did more in this one performance with one shot on the microphone than anybody could do in 3 years of victories, and that includes him, and he just might have them. He might have 3 years of victories. I don't know. He did more that night in that moment. And when you talk about seizing those opportunities, when you talk about understanding that this is marketing, that there's nothing you have to be embarrassed about. This is a promotion in the business of entertainment wrapped around the sport of mixed martial arts. When you really start to understand that, and people want to come back and push and say, well, it shouldn't be that way. Well, it is that way. And it just got proven 2 nights ago by Nate the Train. So he does this interview. I must have watched this interview 50 times, right? Which I'm sure is an exaggeration. It's closer to 12 times. I couldn't stop. He does this piece with Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier is a fan, but Daniel also understands the marketing aspect of this. So when Daniel is face-to-face with a guy that's cutting a promo, you can actually see the little kid excitement in Daniel's eyes. You can see Daniel light up. And if you go back and you watch this clip of Nate the Train, I've got it posted right now on my Twitter account if you would like easy access to it, you will see Daniel Cormier proud. He's proud of this young man, watching him take his shot. Oh, and by the way, sink it. It was this beautiful thing. First off, I liked what he said. I also liked how he said it. I don't know where he's from, but he's like his tone and his effect, right? Almost sounds like Southern. So what he says just comes across pleasant. Even if he was to say something bad, he just gets away then he calls for his wife. They never got the wife. The wife never actually came into the ring, but he called for her, and there was something about that he wanted to share that moment with his wife, not just take it all for himself. It was awesome. It was awesome. And he achieved more in one fight with that moment, which might as well have been a debut. It might as well have been. I don't know anything that he's done. I do not know what his record is or who his past opponents are. I will know now. And so will you. I will follow and look for him now, and so will you. But it's also proof to the idea. When you tell me, I love this sport, and I love the UFC, I don't like the talk. Excuse me. Can you like this sport and can you love the UFC if you just don't like grappling? Can you? No, of course not. Why? Because it's part of it. Can you like this sport and can you love the UFC if you don't like kicks and punches? No, of course not. Why? Well, because it's part of it. The interview, the weigh-in, the press conference, the post-fight speech, the moment with Rogan or with a Daniel Cormier or a Michael Bisping, they're all part of it. So please don't tell me that you just love the sport and you just love the UFC and you don't need that. It wouldn't matter what Nate did and you could juxtapose that with someone else did. It's an absolute wash. It's not what you care about. It's all part of it. You either like it or you don't. And if you're listening and you're going to hear one of these interviews and you have one that captivates you and creates an emotion, it's successful. And guys like that deserve credit. And I think for the weekend as a whole, Cheeto Vera breaking through, or at least solidifying his spot, possibly number one contender. And all of the things, Rory McDonald's retirements, all of these things that happened over the course of the weekend. I do think that brief moment and that brief interaction with Daniel Cormier that Nate the Train did was arguably the most successful.